We're less than a week away from camp, and it is back. Now, do some people need to backtrack? That is the question. This is going to be an episode of perhaps some self-reflection, perhaps some panic, perhaps some intrigue, but we're going to get to the bottom of this with each other. It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. I am Landry Locker. I will be at training camp in less than 7 days. Nick Caserio will speak. We'll hear from Nick Caserio. Maybe even ask him a little something about this. But the Bill O'Brien offense, it was often scrutinized. I think fairly so. It appears to be back for the Texans. I heard it one time a week ago. I kind of glazed over it. Then I heard it again today. And I think the reality is such. The wonders about whether or not Nick Caserio was getting his system back, I think they can be confirmed. We heard today for the first time as a Houston Texan, Jake Andrews, the man who surprised many by being the starting center in offseason activities. He's got some history with Cole Popovich. He's got some history with King Bill. And here is how he described the Texans offense. This was on Texans radio and the Texans YouTube.
Yeah, for me, it's easier because I ran this system, exact system, different verbiage. In college, my senior year, or my rookie year when I was in New England, I ran the same thing with Bill O'Brien.
Yep.
And so for me, it's been pretty easy because I can communicate with guys who are seeing this stuff for the first time.
Right.
And, it's easy for me to say, hey, well, we used to do it this way. And I know what Cole wants, probably.
All right. So there we go. He said the same system he ran with Bill O'Brien. How does that make you feel? Because I think there's a little bit to it. But how does that make you feel? Because we got to be honest. There were a lot of us that were very happy to see that system go. There were a lot of us. I'm in these Texan streets quite often. I hear what a lot of you people, I do mean you people. Shout out to everyone in the chat.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
I heard a lot of people say, thank God they're getting rid of that system. That system. These are quotes. Y'all are going to be laughing. Y'all heard them. That system. It only works when Tom Brady's running it. Y'all have heard it. The Kubiak system is here. It's the perfect system. And now the Bill O'Brien offense is back. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? Not great. Not great, if you ask me. But John Mechie might have made me actually feel better. John Mechie might have actually made me feel better about this. Because John Mechie was on Texans radio as well. And here's what John Mechie said about this offense when Mark Vandermeer asked him, what is this offense? Don't give away the secrets. But what is this offense? This is John Mechie on the Texans YouTube and Texans All Access. This is what John Mechie said.
It's good. It's good. I relate to it a lot. I like it. It's very similar to an offense I had in with Bill O'Brien at Alabama my last year. And a little bit of that Sark offense too, because of the West Coast. So it's been pretty good for us to adjust to it. It's been pretty easy. It's fun for the receivers. It's our type of offense for sure. It gives a lot of power to the offensive players, a lot of trust with the offensive players. So we've been enjoying receivers. Okay. It's good. It's good. I relate to it a lot. I like it. It's very similar to That's
interesting. that Mechie says that, and I do think it's good that he added that there's a West Coast element to it. So maybe not all is bad. Maybe it truly is a hybrid, like Nick Caley said that it was, and Nick Caley got a little bit generic when I asked him about what this offense is. Let's hear what Nick Caley said, how he kind of described this offense when I asked him about it. It's going to start with a little DeMeco look. But this is what Nick Caley said when I asked him what this offense is.
How would someone like me describe this team if we were talking about it?
It's going to be Houston's. It's going to be our team based on what we do. And I don't say that to throw any curveballs. It really is. I mean, look, my history dating back to when I first got into the National Football League under Coach Belichick is we were going to be a game plan team. If that meant we were going to run duo and gap schemes and run the ball 45 times to win the game, then that's what we were going to do. If we had to run more perimeter plays, wide zone, and we felt that was going to give us the edge, we were going to do that. It was all going to be based. We were going to ask our guys to do what they do well, but it was going to be based on what we do to help us win. And at the end of the day, we want to win, and that's priority for us.
And follow up. How would someone like me describe this game if we were talking about it?
He says that, and really all coaches said that. Bill O'Brien said that we're going to do what it takes week to week. Some execute it better than others. Sean McVay, Gary Kubiak, masters of it. Bobby Slowick wasn't that great at it, but that's kind of where it gets interesting. Is okay. You say week to week. What does that mean? Does that mean that you're going to abandon your identity? Does that mean that it's going to be perfectly adjusted like what we saw in New England? This kind of goes back to what a lot of you people, I do mean you people, were saying about this system, that it only worked in New England when New England would run the ball 40 times one week and then throw 60 the next with Tom Brady. Is that what Nick Caley is going to do? I would probably say not. I don't think he's going to run it at that high of a level. But the week to week is the goal of everyone. It's a matter of if Nick Caley is going to be able to adjust. Justin Wiggins says, I don't feel it's going to be Billy O. Might not be, but the name has come up twice with guys that used to play for him, and they both said that it's the system. I mean, that maybe the offensive line, it's a little bit different. I don't know, but that's what two players. You don't feel that way? Cool. I hope not too. I think there's going to definitely be some differences, and we'll dive into why the system was unpopular, and maybe that's a reason for optimism here in the locker room. Reminder: be sure to like the video, subscribe, ride along, all that type of stuff. SNL every day at 4:00. But two players have said that it was there. Cebu says BOB system was notoriously confusing, allegedly. Well, I've heard players that played in it say that, and I'm about to talk about the things that were most hated about BOB system, and that will definitely come up. So, yeah. See what that's got going. HDAV Traveler, evening to you, my friend.
Swarm.
But yeah, we'll see what goes on with BOB. Dion says BOB was a good offensive coordinator. Head coaching GM was another story, though. Not here. Not really here. The DVOA was never in the top half here. It might have been one time. I think there's kind of some revisionist history. OG Fish says they were good. They were top 10. No, that they may be scoring, but as far as like DVOA and advanced stats and all that type of stuff, they were not. They were a very, very mediocre offense. There's no doubt about that. A lot of people saying Caserio, this is kind of his thing. I will say, I did find it interesting just how authoritatively Nick Caserio spoke about this offense when I asked him about potentially using multiple slots leading up to the draft.
A lot in the slot. Is it safe to say that someone who primarily worked in the slot in college, like you're not going to shy away from him just because he did majority of his work in the slot like Christian?
Yeah, good question, Landry. I would say, honestly, when you look at kind of formationing and some of the things that you're able to do from an alignment standpoint, I mean, guys essentially line up all over the place. So even if they're quote unquote inside the formation players, I mean, everybody's an inside the formation player. When you reduce a split, when you have tight receivers, tight their formation, all right, line up players outside the formation. I would say going back to Kirk, at A&M, like he played inside the formation. But I would say when you look at his career, I mean, he's pretty much played all over the formation. I mean, let's go back to Arizona. I mean, this guy played all over the place. So you need players that maybe have some degree of flexibility. So if a guy can play inside the formation, outside the formation, all right, not everybody can do that, but some can. You can do some things formationally to kind of help the players. There's some players that are better served on the perimeter. Try to keep him on a perimeter. If he's an inside-only player, okay, well, he's an inside-only player. Like Amendola, I would say, was an inside-only.
I mean, I do think that Nick Caserio is going to be more involved in this offense. I think it's impossible to think otherwise. He's going to be there, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. I was one of his defenders as far as the headset went when he was in New England, and even having the headset here. I was someone defending Nick Caserio at that time. But I mean, you heard the way he talked. He didn't talk about Bobby's offense like that. This is a guy who's obviously very comfortable when it comes to this offense. Now, let's talk about the BOB offense, though, because I think, in fairness, if we revisit it, and it's relevant because the players are saying it's similar. What were complaints about the BOB system? What were the complaints about Bill O'Brien's offensive system? I think there were 5 that you heard the most. And this is just based on my experience with O'Brien. There were 5 things that were most hated about the BOB offensive system, at least around here. Number 1 was there was no accountability. There was little to no accountability when it came to the offense performing at a bad level. That's not my job. I don't know. It wasn't all horse bleep on offense when they lost by 20 points or whatever to the Broncos. The you suck too mother effer game is which one that was, the Drew Lock. He said it wasn't horse bleep on offense. They didn't score till late. So there was no accountability. That's not necessarily systematic, but that was one of my bigger complaints. It was too hard for the offensive line. I've had multiple offensive linemen that played in the system say that it's too hard for the offensive lineman. Now, Andrew seems to think that the one thing I will say is he said the verbiage is a little bit different. So maybe when he says that means that it's a little bit more simple. But I have heard from many people that it was too hard for the offensive lineman. It was almost like they were taking a test before every snap. I heard that was kind of the case for the quarterback too. Now, Andrew said the verbiage had changed with Mark and John, so maybe that's the thing. The other thing was there was kind of a square peg round hole philosophy. And I remember Cecil Shorts telling me that, when O'Brien first came in, it was basically like, well, Wes Welker and Randy Moss did it this way. You don't have those guys. So there was kind of a little bit of a square peg round hole at times, which is kind of a line, which if you want to look on the bright side, that was one of the things that Nick Caley said he did not want to do. Number 4, too much on the quarterback. We talked about CJ Stroud not having enough, or we hear about he doesn't have enough freedom at the line of scrimmage. It's the same thing that you kind of hear about Brock Purdy. But sometimes there's such thing as too much. You're asking the quarterback to basically take a test and control everything before the snap. And a lot of times with O'Brien, we saw that they would be snapping the ball 1 second left on the play clock. So the good thing that CJ Stroud has talked about, it can be a bad thing. It's not guaranteed to be a good thing. So that was number 4. And then number 5, week to week, you really didn't know what you were going to get. Kind of felt like a lot of times it was anticipated that the defense was going to do this and it did something completely different, and you abandoned what you'd done the week before. So those were the complaints about the O'Brien thing and the O'Brien system. And I think there's a couple of things that we've heard from Nick Caley and we've heard from players and coaches that I think is potentially a good thing. And the reality is, if you look at Nick Caley's last 2 stops, it's kind of a combination of what you had with BOB and what you had with Slowick, and we'll just say Kubiak, like that type of system. Because there's been talk about potentially a hybrid, a combination of the Rams and the Patriots. And that kind of intrigues me when it comes to what Nick Caley could or couldn't do. I don't think he's going to come here and try to turn CJ Stroud into Tom Brady. I don't think that's going to happen. Although CJ said he did, talk to Tom Brady about like this system and control and all that type of stuff. Or he said he's been watching tape of Tom Brady. Excuse me. Maybe he talked to him at the Fanatics thing, but he said he's been watching tape of him. So if this is a hybrid, I think that's a good thing. But it is just funny that there was so much excitement about going back to the Kubiak system, and maybe parts of it are still around, but you have it straight from the mouths of players that played for Bill O'Brien before and are learning this system, and the wide receiver and the center are saying that this is Bill O'Brien offense. How ironic would it be? And I almost feel like the definition of ironic is kind of lost because of Alanis Morissette's song where nothing in it is ironic. But how ironic would it be if CJ Stroud, I don't want to say revives, because it's not like it's not like there's like significant doubts about CJ Stroud. But how ironic would it be if CJ Stroud gets saved by Bill O'Brien's offense? That would be kind of funny. That'd be kind of funny. But we don't know what Nick Caley, we don't know what Nick's going to do. We have no idea. Nick. But we've gathered context clues. Some of the clues might make you feel one type of way, and the other ones might make you feel other type of ways. But that's the number one thing of the offseason. This isn't just something pulled out of nowhere. This is 2 players saying it's O'Brien's offense. 2 different positions. Now, we also like that it appears that Nick Caley is going to be using multiple slots. We like that. He's talked about perhaps mixing it up. I think all OCs do that. But who knows? Who knows? DeMeco Ryans was the one who made this decision. He's been around that Kubiak offense for a long time. Now he's bringing in a guy with a little bit about that background, but also the background of Patriot Way. Let's hear what DeMeco had to say about making this hire and what he was looking for. I asked him if this was different the second time around than the last time when you had the roller coaster ride with, damn it, Bobby Slowick. Let's hear what DeMeco had to say.
What was it like this time as compared to the first time when you hadn't been a head coach yet?
This time, this process, it's a little easier. I think knowing what I was looking for, and knowing what to look for after being a head coach for 2 years now, and seeing how we operate here. And it was an easier, process for me. The first time around becoming a head coach, it was very hectic, trying to get a new staff, trying to put everything together. A lot more hectic this time, just being able to take my time, not rush anything, but to think through it, get the right guy, talk to a lot of different people, right, to get a lot of input in what we were doing. So felt much more comfortable this time around.
I mean, that's cool. I thought he almost makes it seem like he had to hurry up and hire Bobby. I mean, he talked to Cliff Kingsbury last time around. But that almost makes it sound like, he rushed the decision. And I don't think DeMeco would rush any decision. I don't think that's in his MO. I think he's a very detailed guy. I think he's a very routine guy. I on the surface, I don't want to nitpick what he said too much, but I think he just, when he says took my time, I think that he's basically saying that he was calmer in this instance. Like he had a grasp of what he didn't want. I think that would be, I think that's probably more of a way of saying what DeMeco is saying there. And this is just my opinion. This isn't factual, but when he says, I didn't rush it and I had a better idea of what I wanted, I think he probably had a better idea of what he didn't. Bobby Slowick had never coached a position group. He had also only been in one spot really coaching offensive football. He didn't really have multiple connections. He'd only been following Shanahan around like his entire career. So you probably wanted someone that was probably a little bit more of kind of a leader of men, if you will. Maybe he didn't completely love every element of that system for CJ. So maybe he knew that. But when DeMeco says that, I look at it more like that DeMeco just kind of knew what he didn't want. So I don't really put too much stock in that. I'm intrigued by Nick Caley. I'm not as put off by the O'Brien offense at this point, because I think a lot of the problems about O'Brien were in complaints. They were BOB things. He was hard-headed. I think he kind of gets off to knowing more than the players do, so he makes it a little bit difficult. I don't think he had a feel. I think moments were too big for him. And that's why in playoff games, you would see him just wet the bed. Even if they got off to a good start, the Kansas City, that was scary. I felt sorry for him. I want to go give him a hug. He was scared. And this was months after they went to Kansas City and went for it on fourth down at the end of the game. He didn't even do it when he was up 21-0 because he got scared. So I think the O'Brien thing, while there are a lot of examples and there was a notion that it only worked in New England with Tom Brady, I also think Bill O'Brien at that time, he was king too. He wasn't unchecked. There had never been a humbling moment for Bill O'Brien in his football life before he got to Houston. And he kept getting more and more and more and more and more and more and more. So, I mean, is that really going to make you try to be better if you're BOB? I mean, if you keep getting to get GMs fired and then bringing in whoever the hell you want to bring in, is that really going to make you change? No. I also think he had Deshaun Watson saving his butt at the end. I thought Deshaun Watson was put in some tough spots. Red zone was a little bit of a problem with O'Brien. But I don't look at O'Brien system coming back and just completely freak out about it. I would like a little bit of a hybrid, but it's not as much of a nightmare as a lot of people may think it was or think it is. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Jacory on the chat with a conspiracy.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
And swarm the like button, folks. Swarm the like button. We're 115 deep. That's good for a week before camp in July. Could it be possible 10:30 football fans go to bed early when it's not football season? That's about to change quickly. Jacory says, could it be possible that the BOB system was solid and he wasn't good at running his own stuff? He has had some of the better players' opportunities, Bama Brady. Yeah, I mean, I think it had as much to do with BOB as it did the system. Now, we did kind of crap on the system. Like, we got to be honest with ourselves. Like, we don't have to backtrack. It's okay. It's okay to self-reflect and look at what we were saying about the return of the Kubiak system. It's okay to say it's all right to have an opinion. It's all right to have an opinion. Y'all got a lot of Rick Smith theories out there too. I'm going to stay away from Rick Smith conspiracy theories. What a good first round drafter that guy was, though. But we know what the complaints were when it comes to the BOB system. Pretty obvious. I want to get to the bottom. I want to solve a mystery with y'all. And I think you might be able to help me because the Houston Texans really confused me today. And I think perhaps they confused a few people. And it came in an area that typically doesn't really confuse me. or a section of the organization that doesn't really confuse me. We'll get to that in a second because I'm going to learn about this as I'm with y'all. I might feel stupid. They might make me feel stupid. I might be the dumb one here. It's very possible. It happens every once in a while, especially when I'm on that
high-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
Not really. Some would say that makes you smarter. I have a question about a trade that almost happened, and we're going to solve that mystery in a sec. But first, though, we got to talk safety. We got to talk about BobTech. Bobby and Reed, they're doing their thing right now. They're providing a service that is a lost art, and it's something that all of the companies need, especially when it comes to safety. BobTech. BobTech.com, 409-744-8225. They got you covered. They will deliver to you. And they got you covered when it comes to safety because they got 4.5 decades of experience in the business. Safety supplies, PPE, spill control supplies, trucking, maritime, gloves, FR coveralls, protective clothing, anything you need. Whether you're working on the dock, whether you're working on the truck, whether you deal with spills, whether you need gloves, they got anything that you need. And if I didn't mention your business, they got something for you that you can use when it comes to safety. I can promise you 24/7 customer service. Go ahead and text Bob right now. I'm sure he loves it and he's going to do it. That's why that number is right there. 409-744-8225, bobtech.com. Let's pay less and get more and keep local stuff alive. Shout out to BobTech for sponsoring this video and helping us get out to WV. So I was thinking about this today when we were talking about the deepest position group that the Texans possess, because I think you can make a case if I just said, and I just presented the question, what is the best position group that the Texans have? What would your answer be? Because right now on SNL, and we have the SNL Facebook page as well, S&L, 4:00 every day with myself and Cody Stutz. Subscribe, like, right along. Like the damn video. But I asked the question, what is the best position group? Again.
High-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
That the Texans have. And the most popular answer is edge. Most popular answer is edge. And I think on this football team, you separate edge and you separate D tackle, because I think there's such a wide gap that splitting that in half is the easiest way to break it down. And then as a result of that, you cut corners and safeties too. So for the sake of this conversation, we're including corners, safeties, D end, slash edge, linebackers, D tackles, offensive line will keep together because they all suck. Wide receivers, tight ends, quarterback to the side, and running backs. What would you tell me is the best position group if I asked you? And Ty on the chat has the most popular answer. He says DE because it's deeper than CB. I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. And the way that you're looking at this is why I'm about to bring up what I'm about to bring up. Because I agree with you. If we're talking elite, then yes. The edge, you have some interesting names. You got Taylor, you got Barnett, Solomon Bird's getting a little bit of love right now. Dylan Horton. You got some interesting stuff going on the edge. We don't know how they use Autry. There's a lot going on. I didn't even mention Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, but you know what? Because we're talking about depth. But yes, it's much deeper than cornerback. But can you make a case that safety is actually the best if we're going to talk depth? Like if we're just talking depth, because I don't hate the depth behind Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. And look, those guys, Daniil Hunter played every game last year. If you are just talking about the best starting duo, yes, I would say edge probably too. But if you look at the safety position, especially if Jimmy Ward's going to be on the team, and we don't know that yet, maybe we'll get some clarity about that in a week. But I think as far as a depth piece, as far as being able to back up your nickel back and your safety, I don't think there's too many backups better than Jimmy Ward. If he's going like as a backup, now how long will he stay healthy? Is he going to be on the team? But let's just pretend that Jimmy Ward's going to play this year until proven otherwise. At the safety position, you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson coming off the best year of his career. You have Kalen Bullock, who could have been all rookie last year, who's got a lot of upside. Jimmy Ward, who is a hell of a backup in both areas. Really was a pretty good starter last year, depending on where you look. Little bit of frustration, but not bad. When you look at the numbers and you listen to what DeMeco and Caserio say. And unlike the offensive line, I think typically they know what they're doing when it comes to defense. And then you have Jalen Petrie, who did a really good job last year in that role. Now, our team's going to maybe try to sniff out Jalen Petrie in coverage, possibly. But you got Jalen Petrie. And then you got MJ Stewart, who they like a lot. You're pretty deep at safety, especially if you have Jimmy Ward, but you may not. And then you drafted Jalen Reed out of Penn State, who I like a lot too, in that Petrie role. I think he might end up being a hell of a player here. So keep an eye on him. So you're pretty deep at safety. It's got good depth without Jimmy Ward. But if Jimmy Ward does play, then it could be some elite depth. You can make a case it's the deepest. I would still rather have, though, with all that said and all that babbling I just did, I would still rather have the equivalent of what you got on the edge and at corner over what you got at safety. So it's just a matter of what's best. But when you take it to where, which I thought, I forgot who it was in the chat. Apologies for forgetting the name. But when you start looking at depth, I think the depth of the safety position, especially, and the other thing about the safety position is the way that they play football, or at least the way they played football on the defensive side of the rock last year. You need a Jimmy Ward behind Jalen Petrie, and then you need a Jalen Reed behind those two, because that was the problem against Kansas City. Like, you kind of went toe-to-toe with Kansas City, but the ghost of Travis Kelce kind of woke up because you didn't have a nickelback, and you had to have Azeez Al-Shire out there chasing around Travis Kelce. Made him look young again. So, yeah, I think you can make a case for safety. Coming up, we're going to solve a mystery. I really, 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 really need some help here. Because I intentionally, when I first saw this, I intentionally said, you know what? I'm not going to get to the bottom of this until the stream tonight. I'm not even going to touch it on SNL. I got to get to the bottom of this, and I'm going to get to the bottom of this on the stream tonight. So we will try to solve this mystery together. We'll try to make some sense of it, quite frankly. Because I think it's a little over the top, and I was very surprised to see the Texans do what they did. Surprised. Borderline shocked. Brandon says, give Jalen Smith some respect. He's a corner, man. What do you mean? I'm talking about the safeties. He's a corner. We don't even know where he's going to line up or what he's going to do, but he's a corner. He's not a safety. Are you talking about the depth at corner, maybe? Could be it. Who knows? Milio says he wants to pack that
high-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
We got about 5 minutes. We can solve this mystery. I think it's going to be entertaining. It's not going to be like one of those mind-blown type things. What if the Texans last year had traded for Keenan Allen? What do we think that looks like with Keenan Allen on the Texans? Now, this was reportedly what they tried to do, and they didn't want to give up a third-round pick next year. They reportedly didn't want to give up a third-round pick next year, and they ended up failing to trade for Keenan Allen, and then they ended up trading for Diggs after that. What would Keenan Allen have looked like as a Texan? I do wonder. I do wonder. And apparently they were going to give him an extension too, if you believe the reports. Now, last year he played in 15 games. So he played more games than Dell and Diggs. He had 744 yards and 6 touchdowns. So he wasn't bad. But let's pretend that he's okay. Let's pretend that he's just serviceable. And you have Keenan Allen. Well, would things have been that much different last year? Like, let's say you have Keenan Allen instead of Stephon Diggs. Do you think things would have been different? I mean, this is why I ask the questions. I don't ask the questions so I can just hear myself talk. A lot of times I'll ask a rhetorical just so I can go on tangent. But I'm asking this, and I am talking this out with you people. That's the point of the night stream. The night stream, we're just hanging out.
High-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
But what if the Texans traded for Keenan Allen? I mean, let's say that he plays 15 games. Let's say he's available in the playoffs. You remember what they had at receiver in the playoffs once Dell and Diggs went down? What if Keenan Allen had been there the entire season? Doing work out of the slot, and Nico's doing what Nico does. Like, would a Keenan Allen against Kansas City have made a massive difference? In other words, like, would your offense have been able to keep humming had Keenan Allen who hadn't always been able to stay healthy, but stayed pretty damn healthy last year. But would the offense be humming with Keenan Allen to where maybe you would have been able to figure things out? This is the way that I have this discussion, and the discussion that I connect it to, that I swear by. I think that if the Texans would have just franchised Jadeveon Clowney and played hardball with him, I think they probably would have gotten past the Kansas City Chiefs. And Bill O'Brien might still be here. Hell, they might have made a statue with him. Cal and Hannah probably would have put him in the Hall of Fame if he gets to that AFC title game. But I think the way that defense was in 2019, Jadeveon Clowney, you put him on that defense, I feel like he at least wins you one game. And he turns around other games. He makes it a hell of a lot more difficult for opposing squads. So that's kind of how I look at it. Like in the long term, do I think signing Clowney long term would have been the right decision? No. But I think if you franchise tag him instead of getting Jacob Martin, Arkevius Mingo, and the 3rd round pick or whatever the hell they got from Seattle, I think with Clowney in that 2019 season, I think he makes a difference and perhaps puts the Texans over the top. Keenan Allen, though, last year, he's really, really, really good in the slot, which helps your offensive line. He's not John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson, so he would have been opposite. So, yeah, I think you probably would have had a better team. I don't know that you're getting past Kansas City. I don't know that it's that if it's that much of a difference. And I also think that it perhaps would have made this offseason. I don't know if you even draft a receiver off the jump. Like, I don't even know if they decide to go get Higgins if they have Keenan Allen. Now, I don't think Keenan Allen should prevent you from doing that. And I think you still would have needed receivers, even if you had Keenan Allen, but I don't know if they would have functioned that way. So I think if you like this wide receiver group, yeah, Keenan Allen would have helped more than Stephon Diggs last year. But this year, if you do subscribe to the belief that the Texans have an intriguing wide receiver room, then yeah, trading for Keenan Allen would have kind of ruined that. The Rock Boy celebration was the worst. It's the worst thing. It's the worst thing to happen to Houston. It was the worst. Shout out to Andrew. I'm okay with it too. I'm very fine with it. I like Keenan Allen as a player. The extension kind of seemed a little weird. It was a 3rd rounder, so who knows what you do with your pick. Maybe you don't end up with Kamari Lassiter if you're drafting higher, because they traded the 2nd round pick with Buffalo to get Diggs. So yeah, maybe that would have helped in the short term. Long term, don't care. I like this wide receiver group. So I really want to solve this mystery. And I think the social media team for the Texans does an excellent job. But I was very confused by something that happened today. I was online, and God, I sound like an old effer. I was online, and I saw this list on Instagram. I was scrolling through the Instagram, and I saw this, and it had a picture of, like, you see CJ Gardner-Johnson there at 45, Jalen Petrie 42, Daniil Hunter 41, Stingley 10, and Nico 39. And it says PSN's top 100 players entering the 2025 season. And at first when I saw it, I was like, okay, is this like one of those like aggregator accounts? I thought maybe it was like Stressins or something like that putting this up, and it was like a random site. But it was the Houston Texans actual account. And you notice that Will Anderson and CJ Stroud aren't up there. I mean, this is the top 100 players. And the two faces of your squad aren't up there. And the main team account is posting it. I was like, what is that? And it seemed like people were kind of freaking out about it, wondering what was going on too. CJ got robbed, no Joe Mixon. Everybody's kind of cooking it. And this is the actual Texan site putting this up. So I'm doing this for the first time. I have no idea what PFSN is at all. And I don't know if there's like some sort of extra, like, I don't know if there's like some sort of extra context here. But I don't understand what this, by the way, this is a P. This looks like a Pro Football Talk. Type of thing. So let me see this real quick. So there's Albert Breer. So they're using that video. Let me see if there's like some context here. Let's read this together. Like, because this list is crazy. So says that their team of analysts carefully crafted the NFL top 100 after our analytics created the new impact score for every single player in the NFL, drawing from a wide range of data points that all contribute to an individual player's impact on their team's success. We evaluated the overall. This is kind of interesting. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to hate just to hate. We evaluated the overall impact each player had on their respective team, factoring in the current roster construction and depth chart to establish a consistent baseline. From there, the list was carefully examined to account for any statistical outliers, players returning from injury, and other variables that could affect a player's performance. And then that's what their thing is. I still don't understand how CJ Stroud and Will Anderson don't end up on there. Like, I don't, like, if the formula sounds cool, it really sounds awesome, but I feel like Will Anderson made some pretty impactful plays. Like, definitely more than Jalen Petrie. Jalen Petrie played 10 games last year. Like, think about that. Like, you're factoring in last season and a guy who played 10 games at nickel linebacker or nickel corner is 42 on the list. Danielle Hunter's 41. Derek Stingley's 10. Okay. Nico Collins is 39. Okay. He missed some time. And then CJ Gardner-Johnson. It just seems like a weird ass list to me. And I don't, it doesn't matter because weird ass lists happen. The only reason I'm talking about this list is because the freaking Texans put it on their Instagram and regular Twitter. That's the whole point. I kind of snapped out of this. Like, you can tell, like, right there in the middle of me talking about this, I was like, why in the hell am I even paying this any mind? And you know me, I'm Mr. I don't care what Stephen A. Smith says about the Texans. He blah, 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 blah. I'm doing an impression of my own annoying ass self. But I don't like look at every list. There's some people who will look at every list. I think some lists are interesting, like PFFs, ESPNs. Like, sometimes there's a good list. But a list like this is not something that I would ever pay attention to. I don't even know they would cross my timeline. And the Texans tweeted this out. This is one of the weirdest lists I've ever seen. I thought maybe there would be like some advance where it said you can't have quarterbacks and you have to have been in the league. I thought maybe you had to be in the league for 3 years or more. I'm dead serious. When I saw this list and I saw that CJ Stroud and Will Anderson weren't on it. I thought maybe that you had to get like grandfathered into being able to be listed. I thought, okay. Maybe you have to be in the league 3 years to get on the list. No, it's just a dumb list. And the Texans Instagram and Twitter put it out. I don't know what the hell is going on there. I know slow time. It's tough content time. But that surprised the hell out of me. I had to do a double check. Did they get hacked? They can be offering me a PS5 for $19.99 pretty soon. Weird ass list. Big time weird ass list. Oh, what that was. I just don't get it. And it was on the actual site. Man, we gotta get to camp quick. We gotta get to camp quick. They need it too. That's crazy.
High-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
It's just wild. I don't know what was going on with that. I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna ask when I get to camp. Like, what was that? Is that, do y'all have like a partnership with them or something? Because that's a list that Texans fans, I would assume, would roast. How's our quarterback not in the top 100? How are you not gonna put Will Anderson on there? The team site's throwing that out there. Shocked. I just can't believe it. And what's the caption on the tweet? Just a graphic. Like they just did a graphic on it. Why? Best in the game. Crazy. I mean, that would be like, do team sites like tweet out PFF? Because what I always hear is, these lists don't matter, and we don't worry about the outside noise. That is a crazy ass list. I still can't believe that made it there. Because they're on their game. That's crazy. But is it as crazy as Bill O'Brien's offense being back? I don't hate the O'Brien offense being back, especially if you can balance it out with a few elements of the McVay Shanahan thing. I'll be fine with it. The verbiage, I think, is important. I think that was O'Brien is the trigger word, but when Andrew says the verbiage is different, I'm hoping that means that the verbiage is easier. So there would be that. The other thing is, maybe it's a little bit more of the Josh McDaniels than the Bill O'Brien, because that's kind of one of Nick Caley's idols. He grew up idolizing, I think, McDaniels' dad in Ohio. So maybe it's a little bit more McDaniels. And say what you want about McDaniels, he's actually a pretty good OC. And I know most of his success was with Tom Brady, but Tom Brady will tell you that, man, he really missed when Josh McDaniels wasn't there. That was kind of the guy. And I think Josh McDaniels, and this ended up getting him a second chance as a head coach, and I thought it was a hell of a job, and I think it's traveled very well with time. As we talked about, like, how the systems never worked without Tom Brady. Mac Jones had a hell of a rookie year. And stuff was going to inevitably crash out in New England. And I think Tom Brady knew that. And him and Belichick weren't getting along for whatever reason. But it really hit the fan when McDaniels left for Mac Jones. And really Belichick, too. Didn't he hire Matt Patricia and Joe Judge as his OCs? Matt Patricia, who almost broke my foot at a Texans joint practice. But McDaniels did a hell of a job with Mac Jones. Mac Jones was pretty good his rookie year. He did a good job. My hot take, y'all are going to call me, nah, we don't need that. It's not necessary here. Now, you know what? I think Mac Jones, if the 49ers, remember when the 49ers were supposed to take Mac Jones? And that was the big talk, and they ended up going with Trey Lance. I think Mac Jones would have won a Super Bowl in San Francisco. Maybe 2. I think if he just got in that system with what they had around him, I think maybe Mac Jones would have won a Super Bowl. I mean, just look at how he played that year 1 with McDaniels. San Francisco went to the Super Bowl with Garoppolo. They went with Purdy. Especially if they trade for McCaffrey still. I think Mac Jones might have worked in San Francisco. Hell, he might have Brock Purdy's contract right now. Is that crazy? And Jimmy Garoppolo went to a Super Bowl. A lot of NFC title games, too. Trey Lance thing just didn't work out there. But shout out to B.O.B. Shout out to B.O.B. Shout out to Texans social media team. Even though I don't know what the hell that list was. Still don't. So we're 6 days away from camp. 6 days and 30 minutes away from camp. Nick Caserio going to speak. I'm trying to remember. They're not going to like practice that hard. But we'll get a look at who's out there, who's moving around, who's on the side field. We'll get a clear picture. It'll shape up. And you all know that SNL with myself and Stutes and Houston football, as well as the locker room, has got you covered like nobody else. We go there with our game faces on. We go there with our game faces on. We take notes. We don't do anything but just take notes and watch practice for you people. Not just you people, because I love it too. Maybe I'll ask Caserio about this offense. Maybe I'll check that out. Y'all are just bringing up bad trades now. Christian Harris still on the side. I think Christian Harris will be out there stretching. I will bet. He went on the side field much last year. He was rolling around before he came back. So I think he'll be out there. I do mean you people. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Time out. If you softball any questions, Landry, we're going to hold you accountable. Come on. Give me a break. I mean, I'm always going to ask the question. I already got my Caserio questions here, I think. I'm always prepared when I go in there. I don't want to just hear my voice. If there's nothing to ask, I'm not going to ask. And I'm going to expand on it, and the content's going to go somewhere. Yeah, there it is right there. I already got the Caserio ready. Showed this the other day. Jimmy Ward's status and the way you negotiate contracts. The contract negotiations getting a lot of attention. We haven't heard Nick talk about it. That's something I want to hear. But yeah, you know how that goes. No, I'm not gonna hammer him every time. But yeah, we'll figure it out. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to ride along. Like the damn video, please. Let's get this up to a hundo before I wake up. Hundo likes. How about that? Shout out to Bill O'Brien. We missed you. Not. Shout out to you people. And I do mean you people. 6 days away from camp. Let's feast. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really